if your small business isn't struggling because of your marketing strategy, but because you're planting in the wrong soil? What if you don't need more content, more posts, more strategies, or even more followers? Can I get an amen? What if you simply just need better ground? You can scatter seeds all you want, but if they're falling on rocky soil, nothing is going to grow. So today we're talking about why your small business may not be growing and how relationship marketing and reputation marketing in your local community might just be the soil that you've been missing. So if you've ever thought, I'm doing all the things, why isn't this working? Or maybe I need a new strategy, stay with me because this episode is just for you. Welcome back to Small Business Growth Tools, formerly known as Grow My Small Business. A little bit of a glow up for the podcast to make it a little more search friendly for Christian women to find it and search for it, right? I am really excited about the future of this show, and I hope that you'll continue to be a part of it. I'm Lindsay Fletcher. I'm a relationship, marketing, and sales strategist. I'm your resident business nerd, and I help Christian women grow their networks, attract the right leads, and close sales without feeling pushy, without working more, and without living on social media. If this is your first episode, and especially if you are on YouTube, welcome to the family. This show is specifically for Christian women in small local business who are local business owners, small business owners. Maybe you're a service-based business or a service provider, or you're in a trades business. This first episode is on me. And if you decide you want to watch or listen more, then we'll do a quick little virtual handshake, so to speak, and you'll hit the follow button on your podcast app or subscribe on YouTube. And I'll keep hitting publish and sharing all the things that I've learned over the years. Do we have a deal? Okay, awesome. Today, we're looking at marketing our local small businesses through a biblical lens. So let's dive in and talk about the parable of the sower. In Matthew 13, Jesus tells the story of a farmer scattering seed. He told them this: a farmer went out to sow his seeds. As he was scattering the seeds, some fell along the path and the birds came and ate it up. Some fell on rocky places where it did not have much soil. It sprang up quickly, but the soil was shallow. And when the sun came up, the plants were scorched and they withered because they had no root. Other seeds fell among the thorns, which grew up and choked the plants out. Still, other seeds fell on good soil where it produced a crop, 160 or 30 times what was sown. You see, in this parable or this story, the seed wasn't the problem. It was where the seed was being planted that was. The soil was the problem, or the lack thereof, right? So let's talk about how this applies to business. The reason that your business may not be growing may be because of where you're marketing, not how. It may be where you are planting your marketing seeds. So if you're posting daily, but you're rarely speaking to people in person or getting into conversation in DMs, email, or maybe even over the phone, or you're relying on an algorithm for visibility, hello, social media, or you might be relying on your website to lure people in. You might be scattering your seeds, but you're not actually planting them. Do you see what I'm saying? You might be running ads that aren't converting or posting on social media that maybe 2 or 3 of your followers are seeing, which does not help in converting to sales, dollars in your bank account, right? So if that's the case, you are scattering your marketing seeds, but you aren't taking root, and roots are what's required to eventually produce fruit. So let's talk about rocky soil in local small business. Rocky soil could look like social media engagement with no real conversation. And I know. It probably seems like I'm always hating on social media, but it's because I see so many entrepreneurs and small business owners, especially in the local small business space, putting all of their marketing eggs in the social media basket, and they get little to no return. And then they end up burned out, or they have to get a job to pay the bills. So yeah, I'm hating on social media at the moment when it comes to this, because this is rocky soil. Okay. Another type of rocky soil might be vanity metrics without revenue. It might be getting likes with no one actually buying your service or your product. That is for sure rocky soil. And as Christian business owners, we need to be really careful about vanity metrics, because are we doing social media to look cool and to look like we're productive? Or are we doing it because it serves a purpose for our business and for the kingdom? That's the ultimate goal, right? So We have to be really careful about vanity metrics when they're not bringing in leads and people that we can actually serve. Okay. Another type of rocky soil in small business might be one-time networking events that you don't do any follow-up on. So this just isn't how relationship or reputation marketing works. You just can't speed date at networking events, okay? You're not going to make any genuine connections if you speed date or if you go one time, and you can't expect to walk away with sales or referrals from that type of thing. And then the last one, but this list is obviously not exhaustive. The fourth and final rocky soil that I'm going to talk about today is constant strategy changes because nothing's working. Okay. I've talked about this in previous episodes, but this really is a big one. You get to the uncomfortable stage in your strategy where nothing is working quite yet. You're putting in the resources and the time and the energy, and your brain is telling you to just pick another strategy because this one isn't working. You're not getting that instant gratification. When in reality, you just need to stick with the strategy a little while longer, because oftentimes you need to double down on the strategy, not change it. You need to change your actions instead. Okay. So discernment is really needed where rocky soil might be, because even rocky soil produces sprouts, right? It looks exciting. It feels exciting. It even feels productive, but there are no deep roots. And then when you have no deep roots, then when the pressure of business and life comes, when Q4 slows down, or maybe the algorithm changes again. I mean, how many times in the last 6 months has the algorithm changed? Or when people start to tighten up their budgets because of the economy, that sprout starts to wither. And shallow visibility doesn't equal growth. It's never going to be the thing that sustainably grows your business. So let's talk about good soil. Now, before we move on, if you've ever felt like I'm doing everything I'm supposed to do, but I'm exhausted and I'm not seeing growth, this next part is going to explain why. Because good soil in business is not reach, it's not vanity metrics, and it's certainly not likes and follows. It's relationships. Relationships are going to grow your business faster than anything else. And marketing your business and planting seeds in good soil works differently than content marketing, where you're likely scattering your seeds on rocky soil. What does good soil in small business, and more specifically, local small business, what does good soil look like? It looks like consistency. It looks like proximity, trust, repetition, and community. And when I say community, that is where the really nutrient dense good soil is. Good soil is when people in your community, whether that's locally or on the internet, online, they know your name, they've engaged with you in some way, maybe in DMs, in email, they've downloaded your thing, or maybe they've actually shaken your hand in person. That's the good soil. They've seen you serve your clients and your community, and they have watched you show up consistently and repeatedly. Okay. This is why relationship marketing works. And when it's done correctly, it's so effective. Okay. So referrals convert higher than cold leads by far. And building referral partnerships with B2B partners, maybe someone who is close in location to you, physically, or serves the same type of client as you, but does something else, or even is a collaborator who does the same thing as you, but you pass business back and forth depending upon what needs to happen, right? And so when it's done correctly, referrals and relationship marketing works. It's the number one strategy I would choose. If I had to whittle it down to only one, this is the one I would choose, okay? So trust is the good soil. And the good soil is a previous client or a good friend telling everybody they know about you and what you're doing and what you're building. It's putting seeds in soil that are watered and taken care of. It's like seeing reviews written by your current customers or your past customers, right? Psalm 1:3 says, "He is like a tree planted by streams of water, yielding fruit in season." Notice it says planted, not scattered. Planted and rooted in business means that you show up in the same rooms consistently, online or in person, right? You serve others before you sell. You stay long enough to reap the harvest, which is, I think, probably the hardest part in small business, is that it's why so many small businesses fail or close. It's because they don't stay long enough to reap the harvest. They don't stick to their strategy long enough to actually see the fruit, let alone be able to pick it, right? So you assume this group didn't work, or this strategy didn't work, or networking doesn't work. But the reality is you've never really planted deeply and let roots form. You just scattered your seeds, and you likely scattered them on rocky soil. So I want you to remember back a couple episodes. If you haven't listened to the one on the emotional cycle of change, go back and do that. But the brain goes through a cycle every time there is change. And every time you start something new, your brain goes through a cycle. And it's kind of like a mountain peak, and then it goes down into a valley, and you hit the valley of desperation, and your brain is telling you, change strategies. This isn't working. Just go back to square one. Let's start over, right? Your brain is trying to keep you safe, comfortable, and optimistic. Your brain is not designed for success. It's designed for safety. So you have to get through that valley of desperation where you really hit rock bottom and you think, oh my gosh, this isn't working. And you have to stick it out so that you can come back up on the other side of the mountain, okay? Remember that plants take root before they actually produce anything, before the leaves start forming to provide shade, and before the fruit actually comes to life, right? So what does planting our seeds in good soil look like in a real life, practical, apply it today sort of way, okay? I'm going to give you 3 ways to practically plant your seeds in marketing. Number 1, I want you to pick 1 to 2 ecosystems and commit. I recommend, whether you do online or in-person business, that you find local ecosystems to plug yourself into, okay? A networking group, a chamber of commerce, a church business group, an industry association, somewhere that you can maybe volunteer, your kids' PTO or PTA. Don't bounce around. Plant yourself, get rooted, and build relationships. I want you to act like a tree. I want you to stay where you're at, get rooted, so that you can actually see the fruit of those relationships, okay? Number 2, I want you to track your connections and conversations. Put the names of everyone you meet in a spreadsheet. I mean it, everyone. Everyone in a spreadsheet or a CRM or the notes app on your phone. Make notes of where you met them, what they do, and what you learned about them. Common ground you had, hobbies that were similar. If they have kids or dogs or whatever they talked about, write it down so you remember, because that'll help you in following up and building these relationships down the road, okay? Then after you've put everybody in your list, I want you to track how many real conversations you're having each week, like actual communication back and forth, okay? And then you're going to intentionally follow up, and I call them follow-throughs here, because how many follow-ups or follow-throughs did you do with the people that you met? And then how many referrals or connections have you made for other people? And this is probably the most important question of all of these. Did you serve them first? And I'm not talking about just connecting and engaging on other people's social media posts and things like that. I'm talking actual conversations, actual 2-way conversations, and serving them without expecting anything in return. So here's a few ways that you can root yourself in these conversations and connections. You can engage intentionally with past clients, with current clients, with warm leads, and with referral partners. And notice I said intentionally. Don't just reach out to reach out. Now, listen, I love a good just thinking about you sort of text like everyone else does. Okay. I love getting those. And so I'm not saying don't ever do those, but what I am saying is don't just reach out to reach out, or don't just try to make up a fake conversation or a shallow conversation. Be intentional and very purposeful with your reach outs. Galatians 6:9 says, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time you will reap a harvest if you do not give up. And I want you to notice something in that scripture. The harvest is conditional on not giving up. Okay? I'm going to say that again. The harvest is conditional. It says you will reap a harvest if the harvest is conditional on not giving up. So please don't give up too soon. You've got this. Stick with the strategy. Number 3, as a Christian business owner, you can pray over your soil. Ask God questions. He's not offended by your questions. In fact, I believe he invites them, because relationship is built on 2-way communication. Okay. So Initiate conversation with the Lord and ask him, where do you want me to be planted? Which relationships should I focus on and steward in better ways? And where am I scattering seeds on rocky soil? And where is the good soil that you'd like for me to plant? You likely don't need more seeds, okay? You likely need better soil. And if your business feels stuck, don't automatically change your offer or your pricing. Don't assume that you need a rebrand or a new funnel or some shiny new technology thing. I want you to ask, where am I planted? Where am I rooting my business? Relationships build revenue. Reputation builds revenue. You don't have to chase opportunity. You have to nurture connections and turn those into real relationships. If this message hit home, hit follow on your podcast app or subscribe on YouTube for more practical biblical applications to your business. And if you stuck with me this long, thank you so much. And I have a free resource with you as a reward for sticking with me. If you are ready to start building real relationships with what will actually increase your revenue, you can go to lindsayfletcher.co/relationship marketing to download my relationship marketing checklist. It will get you ready for these types of conversations and for networking and building relationships in your community. Thank you again for joining me for Small Business Growth Tools. As always, I'm praying for you and I'm praying for your business. I'll talk to you next week.